El episodio de hoy va a ser distinto porque hace unos episodios atrás saqué un capítulo que comentaba cuál es mi método para aprender idiomas y lo que he utilizado tanto para aprender inglés como sueco y también estudiar ahí ruso, portugués, finlandés y otros idiomas, aunque no pueda estos hablarlos aún o tal vez jamás porque la verdad es que he pausado ahora los idiomas. Pero sí, la idea de hoy es que, al igual que en ese episodio os comentaba cuál era el método y demás, quería centrarme hoy en el inglés, ¿no? En mi experiencia aprendiéndolo, teniendo en cuenta que vengo de... Sacaba las peores notas en secundaria e incluso cuando tenía 17 años no podía hablar nada de inglés. Me acuerdo que memoricé por primera vez lo que era I will, el futuro, en inglés cuando tenía apenas 17 años, que es súper tarde, ¿no? Hasta el punto que a día de hoy la mayoría de información que consumo es en inglés. Lo que pasa que os digo que este episodio va a ser un poquito especial porque me ha salido la vena de que podría ser bastante divertido hacer este episodio en inglés. O sea que después de la intro os esté explicando cuál es mi experiencia y lo que ha significado para mí aprender inglés, pero hacerlo en inglés. Y dices, Pau, pero esto no es una tontería porque si estás escuchando en primera instancia es que estás interesado o interesada en al menos aumentar el nivel de inglés o a lo mejor tienes cierta curiosidad, pero he pensado que ¿por qué no? Al fin y al cabo, esto es toda la vida, nuestras vidas son un experimento en sí y este podcast aún más. Así que antes de entrar a la intro, antes de entrar a explicar este episodio en inglés, voy a aprovechar ya para patrocinar en español y agradecer a los miembros de Sociedad.ninja, la comunidad del podcast, que además tenemos ahí episodios exclusivos solo para los miembros. Unos miembros en los que estamos en contacto todos. Tenemos una comunidad súper proactiva y muy maja. Así que nada, muchas gracias a los miembros de Sociedad.ninja. Y vamos a empezar a hablar un poquito en inglés, a ver qué tal va la cosa. A lo mejor lo podéis usar después para practicar el listening, para practicar estas habilidades de escucha. Pero creo que va a ser divertido y bueno, no nos lo vamos a tomar tampoco como precedente en el sentido de que sí que es verdad que más adelante tenía pensado llevarme a algún invitado así en inglés y demás, pero este episodio va a ser en inglés, pero el resto de los podcasts siempre va a ser en español. Al fin y al cabo es donde se centra mi audiencia, pero ¿por qué no? Ya que el canal vale absolutamente todo, este podcast vale absolutamente todo, pues vamos a meter ahí también en calzador otro idioma, ¿vale? Así que vamos a ello en este podcast multipotencial de Pau Ninja. So, since I was a little kid, I always hated English. Not because I thought it was some kind of ugly language or something like that, but more so in the fact that I hated it in school. I was really bad at it, but looking back, I think it's basically because I just didn't study properly. I didn't have any kind of motivation, or I was not inspired to learn it, right? I remember when I was in secondary school, I was already 15 or so. It was the last year, and we were having the last English exam. And I was sitting next to my best friend, and I knew I would not pass, even though that exam was really important. So I was sitting next to my best friend because I knew he was really good with English, and I just wanted to copy absolutely everything he was doing. So I was thinking about cheating, right? I wanted to cheat. I wanted to copy whatever he was writing on the test. So we were doing it, and I started to copy what he was writing. And I thought I would get away with it because the teacher was not seeing me. She was not seeing him. And my friend gave the exam first. And then I waited for like 10 minutes. And I gave my exam to the teacher. But as soon as I realized that as soon as I gave her the test, the teacher was waiting for me to actually compare both exams, to actually compare my friend's exam and mine right away in the same moment, the same day as exam. So then I realized that I was like, Pao, you fucked up. Because I realized that she was noticing how I was copying, even though I thought she was not noticing. But then after I gave my exam, she was just, you will see, And then I wanted to start crying, I was like a teenager. I was really emotional. I have all my hormones all over the place and so on. And then a few weeks went by. I thought I would not pass the English on my final notes and I could not graduate or something like that. But then it was the last day of English and the teacher was saying out loud the grades that every student had in my class. And then after she was saying name of the student and then the grade, name of the student and the grade, in a scale from 0 to 10, because in Spain, it's from 0 to 10. It's not like in America. I think it's from 0 to 100 or A, B, C, D or something like that. But then after she reached my name, she said, Pau Ninja. Okay, she didn't say ninja, but you know what I mean, right? She said Pau. And then she was like, 5. And I was like, oh, I was almost crying again, but this time from being so excited. I could not believe that she had been kind enough to not counting that exam as good, So what had happened is that she knew I was cheating. She could have not passed me, but because I was like a good kid, not a good student, but a good kid, she decided to give me a second chance so I could pass the English grade and just move on to whatever studies I wanted to do after that. So speaking of which, after I was still not into English, obviously, even though after this experience and so on. But the thing is that after I move on with my studies, I did some computer science, but not at university. It was like a technical, it's what in Spain they call ciclo superior, not ciclo medio, computer science. I think it's technical something in English. I don't know what's the proper translation. But then, I had to do this exam after this kind of studies to go to university, even though I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And in this kind of exam thing that I had to do, I had to study for 1 year general terms again. So I was maybe 17 and I had to pass this exam, right? So this is where my English spark started to ignite, so to speak, because it was quite chill year, we didn't have to study that much. It was general terms like Catalan, Spanish, English, mathematics, and some other stuff. It was just basic stuff, and we didn't have to study that much, and I was not working since I was 17. And then I started to listen to a lot of music in English. I started to get some interest in shows, and before I even realized it, I was really translating songs that I was really passionate about from bands like Blink-182. Sum 41 was my favorite band. And then I discovered A Day to Remember, which I was listening to today because they released a new album in the beginning of this year. Amazing songs, by the way. And because of that, I started to get some personal interest with English. And it's I think I need to point out as well that even though I was not motivated to study it, when I was a kid, maybe I was 10, 12 or something like that, I would face myself in the mirror and pretend that I would speak English. So maybe I had a little interest, but because the education system in Spain, I kind of lost that interest. So I would face myself in the mirror and I would pretend that I would speak in English. I would say like blah, 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 like a made-up language. It was not English. It was probably some elfish language or something like that. Maybe I could have invoked some demon if I did that at 12 in the morning or something like that. Who knows? But that's, by the way, this is a really useful trick to speak yourself in that language. But you have to know a little bit of the language. You cannot pretend to know it like I did when I was a kid. So then, yeah, I started to get really interested in that. I started to learn more on my own, and I started to do all these methods that I share with you when you go to pau.ninja/idiomas. And what I would do is do shadowing. Shadowing, I mentioned it before, but it was basically I would buy these DVDs, physical DVDs from How I Met Your Mother. And then, because there was no Netflix back then, imagine how old I am. I'm so fucking old, man. And then I would just put it in my laptop or in the television, and I would need to buy the DVD because they have the subtitles. That was super important, to have the subtitles both in English and in Spanish. So what I would do is basically combine different stuff to see what would make me learn it faster. For example, I would put the TV show How I Met Your Mother, one episode in Spanish but English subtitles, and then I would switch it. I would flip it. I would put the TV show in English and then the Spanish subtitles to see what would work best. Finally, I realized that it was better to have it in English and having also the English subtitles, but I would pause every time that I did not understand something, and I would pause at every sentence so I could shadow it. Shadow it is basically repeat the language, right? I mean, repeat that line. For example, how I learned the phrase would have been, but faster, which is would have been, would have been. It was thanks to that show. It got stuck in my brain thanks to this method. So when the actors in the TV show would say, oh, that would have been perfect, that would have been perfect. If somebody would have said, you see, now I just use it subconsciously. But if somebody would have said something to me like that, I would not have understood, right? So I would have to dissect it, and then I would be like, okay, now that I analyze it, I understand that it means it would have been perfect. Would have been, right? So this gave me a lot of motivation because I realized that I started to learn these little phrasal verbs and very useful stuff for because my motivation was not to write text in English or anything like that. My motivation was basically being able to speak it. And I think back then my spark with Canada started to ignite also. I don't know, it got stuck in my mind that I wanted to go to live in Canada. I don't know if it was that Sum 41 was from Canada, this band that I really love was from Canada, or I don't know if it was the fact that Avril Lavigne also was from Canada, and she was hot, and I had a crush on her for a really long time, and I remember I was singing her lyrics even though I didn't know what they meant and so on. But it got stuck in my mind that I wanted to go to Canada for a long time. Then I started to work, save some money, and at one point I realized that I had enough money to go to Canada. So I asked for an unpaid leave at my job in Decathlon, and they said, sure, you can go 6 months, and after 6 months you have to come back. If you want, obviously, you can just basically quit. So I packed my bags and I paid some English classes in Canada. It was quite intense because I paid between 4 and 6 hours every day to do classes I think it was from Monday to Friday, and then weekends free. But the twist here is that I was living with other students in a house. I was living basically in a student house. So I moved to Vancouver in British Columbia with the students, and it was a big house with maybe 10 rooms. The first few weeks I shared the room with a Korean guy, but then I moved on my own room. But it was still in the house. It was basically a 2-story house, 2 floors, however you want to call it. And this was probably the best experience of my life, or maybe best experience, but also the experience that changed absolutely everything. I think it was the experience that kind of molded the person that I am today, because as I always say, English has a special place in my heart. Not just the language itself, but everything that has offered me. All the people that I met along the way in my journeys, and absolutely just all the information that I have in my head, I think I owe it to English as well, because it always starts in America or in the English market first, whatever information we're talking about, and then it moves on to the other languages, right? English is basically the language of Earth. It's like the primary language, as we all agree. So I think it's thanks to that I had all these amazing relationships with people. I made amazing friendships that would have not been possible if it was not for English. And also, I would have not dated some girls or had some girlfriends from other countries if it was not have been for English. And basically, I would not have been able to grow as a person, relationship-wise, with these people, you know. So yeah, I think the Canada experience was amazing because when I arrived there at the airport and then I had to start speaking in the class the first day, I never had spoken English before. I mean, not more than a few sentences, just for the sake of it. And I thought my level would be really, really bad because I thought, yeah, sure, I'm doing all this shadowing with the TV shows, I'm reading a little bit of English, I'm doing all these songs and movies, but I never spoken English with anybody. I was maybe writing with some girls online sometimes as well, but it was not a real person-to-person conversation. But my surprise was that when I arrived there, they assigned me to some kind of intermediate level, but only after a few weeks I was already in the most advanced level. In this intermediate level, when they made me talk and so on, I realized that I could express and I could talk with people way more that I thought I could. And I was really surprised with myself. I was really, really surprised. Because I still remember when I went to Oktoberfest in Germany back in, maybe I was 18 years old, when just slowly after my English interest has risen, right? And I went there with two friends. I was one of the people who could speak less English. So I was there with two Spanish friends from my hometown, from my work actually. And I realized that, oh my God, I can speak a little bit of English, but I cannot understand what people are telling me. I remember this Australian guy, who I have him on Facebook now. I thought he was the coolest dude ever, even though I didn't understand shit. Because he had this mustache, like Texas-looking mustache, you know, that it goes all the way down from the nose. It doesn't reach the goatee level, but it's basically a Texas mustache. And he had this hat. He was quite young. He had a really hot girlfriend, with like a skinny dude, but he was exploding happiness from his face. I don't know. He was just, the vibe was really chill and so happy. He was like smiling all the time, like, "Hey mate, why don't you play living, mate?" And I thought it was the coolest dude ever. I was like, oh my God, I want to be like that guy, just traveling with around Europe, even though he's from Australia. And I could basically not communicate with him too much. I sent him a few messages, like, I think it was one of the first few people that I started to have contact with that I have met in person, who I would speak English with, right? I hit him up when I was in Australia, but we couldn't meet. But still, it was such an inspiration to go to Oktoberfest, even though I was not able to speak English, because it made me want to learn it for traveling, because that's when I started to travel. Another of the motivations also was that exactly at those times, I was starting to go to concerts. I was starting to sing bands live. All those bands like Psalm 41, A Day to Remember, all those bands were not coming to Spain, because you realize that in Spain it's not easy for the not so popular bands to go, because it's all the way to the south, and since they go by bus and so on, they don't like to go all the way south. So what we did was basically, I've taken my first planes with Ryanair, and we had gone to London a couple of times to see some bands, some concerts, some festivals. And I could not speak that much English, but it was my favorite bands, and I realized how important it is for me to learn English, right? all the way fast forward till I was 21, and then I reached Canada. I started to go to these classes, and these classes also motivated me to actually proper study. It was really important for me to speak these 4-6 hours a day, and also keep living during the rest of the day with the people in that house, with the students, to talk English. And one of the reasons also to go to Canada, it was not only its nature, amazing country, it was also the fact that I wanted to go as far away so I could not run into Spanish people. So I didn't want to run into Spanish people because I know of some people who go to London to learn some languages, and they realize like they tend to stick with other Spanish people, right? They tend to make groups and they don't get out of their language comfort zone, if that's something, you know. So I wanted to go as far away to avoid that. So basically, after I came back from Canada, after that 6 months, my life continued as always. I think I didn't continue study English actively, but I decided that since I had enough level, that all my books, all my movies, from now on, they would be in English. And I would keep taking some notes if I had to, but they were very little notes. I didn't have to write too much. I didn't have to learn that many things, you know. So I started to read a lot books from Charles Bukowski, which is easy English, and he talks about sex, drugs, about being miserable. I also read a lot about Jack Kerouac. I had one friend in Canada, good old Jan, who inspired me also to read the Beat Generation, like Jack Kerouac and so on. And I actually took some trips with him in different countries, and I guess it was the start of my new life, so to speak. And what I mean by new life is basically that English was the best investment I ever did for my life, in all kinds of ways, right? All the information that I learned about Bitcoin, all the information that I can learn about the carnivore diet, all the consultations, all the books, all the movies, all the absolutely everything. It always comes in English first, and it's really weird that it's rare, basically. That would be a better word, that it comes in another language like in Spanish or whatsoever before it comes with English. We're always a few months behind in absolutely everything, for the good thing and the bad things, right? So that's basically it. I started to do the same with the Swedish. I did the same strategy, and I think after English, the other language that I could speak kind of fluently, it would be Swedish, and I did the same strategy. I learned it on my own, and then I started to do the shadowing, and I think the shadowing, it's one of the best things. Just a reminder that shadowing, it's basically, just copying, saying the words that they say in the TV show, and then switch the books to the language that you're studying once you already reach a certain level, right? The Anki and all these flashcards, they didn't come to me until I started Swedish, which I think is not necessarily good or bad, but it could have saved me some time. But as I always say, with any language that you're learning, the most important thing is the experience that you create with that sentence, with that word, with that language in general. That's why the shadowing and doing that with the TV shows, it's so important, because you're not memorizing a sentence and that's it. For example, when I say I would have been, that thing, I would have been, I'm not just memorizing this on a blank concept. I basically, I'm remembering that scene. That scene caused some emotional, some emotional roller coaster on my brain, I would say. Something like that. And obviously, my English is far from being perfect, but I don't care. My main goal was not to translate in my head. My main goal was to be able to express myself, even if I say some prepositions wrong, or some phrasal verbs are not correct, or if my accent is still kind of off and it sounds really Spanishy. I don't care. My main goal was to express myself without having to translate from Spanish or from Catalan. And I think that should be the goal of most people, right? And practice is important. There's some guy on internet, some Irish guy, I think he is. He says that he recommending starting speaking from day one, but I don't agree. I didn't start speaking from day one in Swedish. I didn't start speaking from day one in English. And I mean, but to learn at least the basics on every language on your own without having the fear of being misread or without having the fear of any kind. After that, I think you can throw yourself to the water, but yeah, it's not necessary to start speaking with people in real life from the day one. Absolutely not. I think as long as you commit to maybe, I don't know, a year or 6 months, depending on how intense you want to do it, then it's way better in that sense. I don't know how you feel it was this kind of experiments. I'm not going to make more episodes in English, obviously, but I think because it's kind of weird, right? That I try to speak about the English experience, but I do it in Spanish. And I was like, why not doing it in English? Obviously, if I wanted to speak about the Swedish experience, I wouldn't do it in Swedish because nobody would be able to follow along, maybe 1 or 2 people that I know. But that's basically it. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed, or at least that you were able to follow along this experience with my English and what are my thoughts and why I think it was probably the best investment of my life. I'm going to remind you that I have a English YouTube channel that I haven't posted anything in more than a year, but it's basically called, if you look up on YouTube, POW Languages, I think it should pop up. Maybe I have, 1,000 subscribers. And I was doing little blogs about languages, but I'm not motivated to follow it. Since you're listening to this, it's probably because you are Spanish or you're from a Spanish-speaking country. So I'm going to tell you that I have a language project, so you can go to idiomas.ninja, and it's a blog, and also it's a YouTube channel where I talk about all these methods. I didn't touch it that much lately, but we have an active group about learning languages, and I think if you pay €2 a month or something like that, you can be part of that group. And it's basically, we have a nice admin who is making sure that the people is active in the group and so on. So yeah, that's basically it for me. I just woke up from a siesta, so I'm sorry if I'm a little bit rusty with my English and with my accent, all that kind of stuff, but that's how I speak right now. So not much we can do about it, right? Unless you try to be very proactive or something like that. But anyways, I'll see you on the flip side in the next episode of the multidisciplinary, I don't know if that's a word, multidisciplinary podcast of POW Ninja.